infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Fray. Happy October. If you happen to be caught up on all of your ITF episodes and are looking for your next binge-worthy podcast, look no further than Jim Harold's Campfire. Now, it's no wonder he's referred to as the OG of paranormal podcasting and that his shows have been downloaded 50 million times and counting. He has a very simple format, just like myself. He talks to real people about their real encounters. No dramatic music or sound effects added or needed. The encounters themselves are more than enough to creep you out, to flat terrify you, or comfort you with heartwarming tales of loved ones who return for one more visit. Tune in to Jim Harold's Campfire on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to Into the Fray. Also, a huge thank you to those of you that took the time to vote for ITF in the first annual Paranormal Podcast Awards presented by Paranormality Media. ITF took home Best Interview Podcast. We were also nominated in the category for Podcast of the Year, and the wonderful Ryan Sprague of Somewhere in the Skies snagged that title. Well deserved, as Ryan works very, very hard on his wonderful show. So, a big congrats to him, and of course all the other winners and nominees in all of the categories. But I will say it again. Award or no award, I have the best listeners, and ITF would be nothing without you. Pretty sure there's a song out there, many songs out there like that, and I dedicate those to you guys. And speaking of interviews, if you have an encounter or experience you'd like to share on the show, email me at shannon@intothefrayradio.com. If you have a shorter encounter, call the hotline at 833-222-9001. Need more time than allotted? Well, just call back and pick up where you left off. Had a new live stream chat hit the Patreon feed this past week, with more interviews scheduled just for my patrons. If you want instant access to all bonus content, along with the perks like stickers, signed books, a private Discord room, secret Facebook group, and more, head to patreon.com and search Into the Fray. You can also hit the link in my bio located on all my socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and it will take you there as well. There are 5 different pledge levels to choose from, so if you love the show, help support it and get yourself extra content each and every month. Speaking of my patrons, it's time for alpha shoutouts. Alphas are those folks that pledge $20 or more a month over on Patreon. Alphas are Anthony Mikulski, Azriel, Chad Irving, Andrew of Black Triangle Coffee, Eric Garcia, Crystal Bowman, Isis Fernandez, Karina, John, Nightwing, Randy, Salcedo Paranormal, Roy Daniel, Ted Cheever, Steve Alarcon, Josh Arthur, Chad Ralston, Jack Cavender, Richard Rose, Sean Kevin Jason, Tyler DeMoney, Stephen Bashore, Charles Mann, Sticky Soundzine, Matthew Lacewell, and Eric Ribbich. Alphas. What? And hello to brand new patrons over at patreon.com. Hello, Craig Crawford, Shay Conger, Jessica Key, Meg, Ron Dupree, Joe Hollander, Elizabeth Trotman, Filippo, Charity Martin, Brad Slavins, Alex Whitcomb, Jessica Josney, David R. Otto, Travis Osterhaus, Bo Baderman, Jordan Berry, and Debbie Monroe. Welcome aboard, guys. And last but not least, a huge thanks to John and Annie Olson and all of their volunteers for putting together the first annual Bridgerland Para-X Conference in Logan, Utah. It was a fantastic all-day event with booths, food, speakers, and more. And in fact, it was such a hit that we are already planning a 2-day event next year. So I am very excited to be packing up my car, hopefully once again, and hitting the road for Bridgerland Para-X 2022. And with all of that said, let's get to my interview with Connor Flynn.
They don't understand, though.
No, many of our coworkers do not, and that's okay. They don't know the joys of researching and podcasting and all of these lovely things that we're into. No, thanks for doing this on a really, really short notice. I appreciate it.
Oh, no other way. I'm so thankful that Dylan, linked us up. And of course, I've been familiar with you for a few years, but of course the stars aligned on the anniversary of the PG film. So incredible.
Yeah, it absolutely did, which is lovely and strange, just the way that we like it. So no, yeah, as you said, Dylan of Creepy Unsolved, he tagged you, I think, on my Be My Guest post on Facebook somewhere. And you heeded the call, so thank you so much.
Hey, that's how it happens, man. You really just have to reach out, pop your little bubble of comfort, and look what happens. It's literally just 2 comments, and now we have magic working.
We have go time. We have liftoff. Yeah, no, so the person that I am speaking to today is Connor Flynn of Bigfoot Anonymous. And Connor, you've got 4 books out on Amazon right now, and it looks like you are well-researched and very, very well-traveled. So, I mean, we got to start off with the basic question of what in the world got you into all of this?
Well, I appreciate you, of course, doing a little bit of research about me. I love when we can combine, our info and just data and experiments and just encounters. And it's such a beautiful thing when cryptid researchers and people that are just really passionate about it can come together. So again, thank you so much. But what started it, I think it was long before I was even born, of course. My mom and my dad were always the adventurous type. My mom grew up on a farm. My dad was a traveler as well and then became a fireman. So he was, a first responder, seeing a lot of strange things in downtown Cleveland. And then growing up in Northeast Ohio, I was surrounded by Bessie, who is Nessie's cousin, the South Bay serpent, the Lake Erie monster. So every time I would go fishing and even canoeing in the early days, and then of course tubing, because once you're released from the tube, you just cold water. And of course everybody else thought, oh, it's fresh water, it's safe. The whole time I'm worried about right below me the king serpent. So it was always wild times. And then hiking, growing up in Mohican and Cuyahoga Valley National Park, I always heard about the Ohio Grassman. And my grandfather owned a farm in southern Ohio, right across the Ohio River, from Wheeling, West Virginia, and Moundsville, West Virginia, which are famous for their giant mounds, which have been excavated in the past and found giant skeletons. So the whole place has always just surrounded me by titans and giants. And it was always just my calling. And I've just been interested in horror films and comic books and then writing myself. So it really just came together. And then I've lived on the road for the last 4 years and got to go after all my favorite bucket list creatures and places. I'm really into haunted places as well, and even just historical spots, because I think that so many stories are forgotten, and I'm just trying to honor what's not being told, and in my own life and the people that changed my life, and then the places I've visited, and the things I've encountered. So I'm kind of like a modern day Lewis and Clark, and all my books are just my little journals and diaries that just help me remember it, and just hopefully spread the word and knowledge and awareness, because of course a lot of dark forces and missing 411, and we've all heard Gemma and Steve Stockton's, of course, incredible work. But man, there's strange things going on. So I'm just trying to raise the flags and just try to keep people alert and aware, because I really want people to be out in the forest and breathing fresh air and going fishing and kayaking. But I also want them to be ready for what's out there.
I'm so glad that you brought up, your time in Ohio, because as you know, I had a short little stint in Ohio for a couple of years where I lived there, back in Vegas now. But you brought up CVNP. Well, that's what, those in Ohio call it, but Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I've been there many a times, and I really miss going out there and going hiking. I was there during a time when there were a lot of young ladies going missing and then being unfortunately found deceased within the park. There was a search going on one day when I showed up there to quote unquote Helltown, kind of a, that Boston Helltown area. And that's where the search was originated out from. Have you heard of anything, as far as CVNP itself, why that might be a place where either people are going to, end their lives, or whatever the situation might be, or if it's a murderer trying to dump someone? Obviously it is out of the way. There are some houses in and around CVNP itself, but have you heard of any of the theories as to why really that's kind of a dark place?
Yes, it's one of my favorite places, in a dark way, of course. And yes, I have heard some of the theories, ranging from chemical spills and government testing to caverns underneath, going all the way to Middle Earth or deep underground military bases, where, of course, they're doing some kind of testing on these chimera creatures. So that might explain how there's Dogman sightings and Bigfoot, and then other strange things like the Mantis Man and the Snake Man. It's pretty much like reptilian creatures. And then there's the Peninsula Python, which is the famous circus story there, how one big snake escaped from a circus and then just grew to astronomical lengths. But yes, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park is off in the cut, and it's between a lot of populated places. So that would also bring the murderers and the runaways, and maybe even just the strange activity, because it is accessible. So I don't want to say gangs, but just weird people that are on the fringe of society, kind of like I don't know, homeless people, like kind of like myself, but luckily I was a positive transient. There's other people that are vagabonds, but they try to rob and loot everywhere they go. There's, a bunch of different types of people. But we've had a lot of strange encounters out there. There's Native American burial grounds that are deep in the woods that we went with a witch, which, it was many years ago, and she was younger than me, but she was wise in her own ways. I think she was just starting out with Wicca, but she went out there and casted a couple spells, and I believe that kind of stirred things up in a negative way. But I've heard stories of crawlers, kind of like from the movie The Descent, like Gollum in The Hobbit, just pale, translucent creatures. And I actually had an encounter in Brunswick with one. So I think all the caves in all of Northeast Ohio, of course, linked together. And Seth has done a great job of documenting just the tip of the spear of strange stuff in Northeast Ohio. Minerva Monster, which isn't, of course, right by Lake Erie, but that also links to French gold going missing. So I think these gems and precious stones and Middle Earth and all these lost tribes of people all connect. So it really links together in my world. And it's kind of wild because right where I'm from, Ohio, the land of 10,000 mounds, Helltown, right down the street. I grew up on Boston Road. So take Boston all the way east, and you make it to Helltown. And then I drove down here, and I lived on the road across America, but now I live in the Panhandle of Florida, right near Torreya State Park, where Stacy Brown had his footage, right where Ochese Landing is, where they captured one in the 1800s. And then I'm right down the street from Donnie Miller, who is a big name in the paranormal world for after being abducted by aliens. And then he has a metal chip in his arm, and now he has a bunch of close sightings with these weird creatures. One is a cyclops, like frogman, and then most of the other ones are cavemen and wildmen and Sasquatch type creatures, the skunk ape down here, of course. But I just feel like my path has been so paved for me, and I just have to walk it. I just have to be brave and bold enough to talk to the people that I need to talk to. And, you know, I work at a comic book store, so I get to rant and rave about this stuff all the time, and I get to interview people on the spot every day in person. So I feel like I've been made for this. I'm a cryptid researcher at heart since my beginning days, and I'm a big sports fan, but I love sports and movies, but I love the Easter eggs and statistics. So I think if I can read between the lines, I can kind of see the answers I'm looking for, and that really transcends to everything I'm battling and going after.
Now, Connor, you brought up the movie The Descent, which of course I love. I have watched that so many times, it's ridiculous. But have you read The Descent by Jeff Long, which is touted to not be affiliated with the movie? The folks that did the movie say that they weren't even aware of The Descent by Jeff Long. But in the book, these golem-like creatures, very pale, they are essentially blind because they don't need to see, because they live down in the dark, of course, underground. They are called Hadals in the book. So if you've ever heard Micah Hanks talk about the Hadals, that's where he gets that term from, is Jeff Long's The Descent. I highly recommend that book. It is my favorite book. I think I've read it about 5 times now, which is ridiculous. I'll take a break for a year or two and then reread the entire thing. But you will not get away today, sir, without sharing that Hadal-like creature encounter from Brunswick, if you wouldn't mind regaling us with that, because that definitely perked my ears up.
Yes, definitely. I have not read the book, and I definitely will check it out. I'll look it up right after this interview and look at the correlations between the movie and the story. And of course, that could happen. That I could see a movie being written about cave divers and then just things going wrong, you know, and then somehow it links up with the movie or the book. But man, it's just a mind bender right there. I gotta look that up. Those are one of those weird coincidences. I was trying to avoid, that's why I was stuttering over my words. I'm trying to avoid the word coincidence, because the first line in my first book is coincidence is the only thing to never exist, because everything has some kind of purpose and some kind of connection. But yes, my translucent creature, I call it the Rake. A lot of people go wild on me, and they're like, the Rake is a creepy pasta. Yes, it's based on, you know, the creepy pasta, but there are these translucent creatures. And like you said, blind. I don't know if mine was blind. I think mine kind of lives in the woods half the time and in the caves half the time. But I worked at this place called Family Video that was a movie rental place, and we stayed till midnight. So I was driving home, and it was really misty. And I was going down Prospect Road into Boston Road. And that patch of woods is known because it has a witch's stone. And another author that came from the same corner that I grew up on, Lauren Richards, actually told me about it. Once I started getting my feet up under me, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, Lauren, because my mom used to hang out with him. And I told him that I'm about to be published writer and, just really connecting. It's a really small world. And I asked him if he had any strange occurrences. And he told me about this witch's stone that they were always told about but could never find, that a bunch of witches used to live in those woods. And the whole place is really scary. But I saw a white translucent creature take about 3 steps across the road, go through this dark patch of woods, right into a spot that we actually used to hang out at. And we heard strange sounds all the time from across the street. And then a lot of my friends have claimed they see a lot of strange stuff too, because we used to sneak out and ding dong ditch houses and throw rocks at things, of course. But other of my friends said they had bluff charges. I have had strange occurrences later, like 5 years later after that. One night under doing a blood moon eclipse, we were using psychedelics, but me and my friend felt a creature come right beside us, and it was just rumbling the ground. But we couldn't see through the thicket, but we could sense that something was there. And we thought maybe it was a deer, but it just had a whole different presence of it. But back to 5 years before, I got to see it pretty well. It was like white and translucent. I feel like I could kind of see like its veins in a way, but it of course could just be the light shining off its skin, kind of creating a little bit of a light. But we went after there the next few days, hiking around, didn't find any trails or tracks or any huts, but there are caves down there. They call that whole peninsula caves and cliffs. So there's been a ton of other weird occurrences, including a dogman and then lots of other Sasquatch stories. But no one ever said anything about that white creature. But 100%, I saw it cross about 2 or 3 steps, and then I saw it dash in. And that whole area that it went was used. So I think it uses that patch pretty often. And it's not far from Mapleside Farms, which is really famous for its fruit and rare, plants. So maybe there's something that magnetizes these strange creatures that way. But again, the caves could really bring them anywhere across the town. So anything's possible at that point.
Can you expand upon the height, the body shape? How large was its head? Did you see its face? Anything like that?
Yeah, I saw pretty much its side view, maybe between 5 and 7 feet. It wasn't huge. It was about my size, I'd say. It was naked, no clothes, no cloth or anything. A little bit long arms, but I really, really couldn't tell. Couldn't tell its face. It was more like, that's why I don't think it was blind. It didn't have like no eyes or long, large eyes that I could see from the side. I really don't know. Just a white, naked person, it kind of looked like, but it looked like the person's been in water for a really long time.
Mm. I mean, did that freak you out, or are you kind of one of those that are able to detach your feelings and maybe your own mortality out of a situation, and you were just more fascinated?
I think it was a little bit of both. I'm definitely disconnected from my feelings a lot of the time because I've done a lot of work to work on doing that, and then a lot of psychedelics and a lot of crazy mantras and meditations, group meditations, and a lot of crazy experimental stuff to kind of get myself ready for this. But it was also super close to home, and I had animals, so I was more afraid for like what I couldn't control in the future, with my animals being outside, of course, sneaking around in the dark. It made me think twice. But by that point, we had already had a dogman encounter a little farther down the street as well. Me, my buddy Jake, and Alex. In my first book, I actually had them write out their encounter to kind of better illustrate my night. And that, I'll give a quick summary. We were going golfing that Saturday. So it was a Friday night, and we were staying at Alex's house over on Sleepy Hollow. So a little bit across town, but again, if they're caverns, it's not too much for them to get place to place, of course. But he was in an awesome place called Sleepy Hollow, which they had a bunch of woods, and there was an abandoned drive-in theater and a spring, like a swimming hole, which had a cement diving board. And all these dogman encounters, and we never knew what dogman was. We called it the Wolfman of Sleepy Hollow back then. But Jake and Alex actually had an encounter with a fireman about 3 months before, during the day, right across the street. And they thought it was a deer at first, but then it perched up and it ran up this really steep hill towards a red barn. So I heard about that, for a good 2 months before I ever got to even go to Alex's house and see the terrain. Now, I was sleeping over there. We were shooting pool down in his basement late at night. And after a while, and we were already down there for a few hours, but after a while, we had this strange feeling. And Alex describes it as rustling outside. I don't think we actually physically heard something. It was more internal, because I believe these creatures have infrasound, or just the ability of vibration that they can make our chest rumble and send in weird waves that can maybe take over our mind, or at least make us sick or send us chills. But we turn off the lights, and we're peeking through this little peek window, and we see this hulking figure down toward the cave, and it was huge. And I think it had pointed ears, and you can kind of see it's a snout. And a lot of people come to me and say it's a gugway. It's a type of Bigfoot that has a snout. It's kind of like a dogman. But after hearing that first encounter during the day with Alex, and then they always said it was a wolf man. So maybe that helped, paint it in the dark. But it was darker than what was behind it. So its fur was real black, darker than midnight. And then after a while, we ditched into the stairwell just because we were so scared. A couple minutes later, we look outside. It was gone. And then throughout the next few hours, we're trying to watch a movie. And I remember just being curled up. And this time was really, really chilling. This was the first time I ever had something really physically strange happen to me. I had bad sleep paralysis during a tonsils and adenoid surgery one time that I saw demon type nurses, and that really messed me up. But this was the first physical encounter that something was actually there. And we saw this thing down the den, and it disappeared the next time we looked out. But that night, I was sitting there curled up, so scared for about an hour. And then collectively, we went upstairs into Alex's room and slept up there. So we went from the basement all the way to the second floor. And then his mom thought it was really crazy and why we did that. And we said we saw something. And then she started saying that she heard man-like hoots pretty much every night coming from her window from the woods. So it's just a collective crazy experience. And his mom is really square and by the book. So for her to even understand what we were going through, what was nice, but the comfort wasn't even needed just because there was no comfort to be given. We saw what we saw, and it just felt nice that she didn't call us a liar.
It is always kind of nice when someone is super skeptical or even, what we like to call a scoff dick. I'm not saying that she was. I'm just saying if you have somebody like that and then they go, yeah, there's something going on here, then you're kind of going, okay, good. This is good. Makes you feel a little bit better. So you say this thing disappeared into a den of some sort? Is that what you saw it disappear pretty much underground?
Yeah, well, we didn't watch it disappear, but when we looked back, it was gone. But yes, there was a huge cave behind it as well. And the whole area back there in Sleepy Hollow is a bunch of caves, and it's just a nice big peninsula. But I have heard a lot of stories of them being attracted to man-made features and places. So they find their ways into tunnels for trains and stuff. So I believe that something with the drive-in theater and all the joy that used to be there, the place used to be alive. Maybe it brings them there, or maybe they just love urban exploring type places that they can kind of perch behind and set up.
It does seem that they like to do that, because I've had several people on the show and the dogman encounters seem to be right up against their, near their homes, right in their backyard or their front yard. Or one of the scarier ones was somebody, I think she was walking to a church down this long road, and then that's where she sees the thing, is in the bushes right by the church. So I think you're spot on with that. There's definitely something to that. Now, if people are not familiar with that area, what kind of caves and cave systems are we talking about? Are they many, or is there just a couple and they're all connected? And how big of a system are we talking about?
I believe it goes all the way to Ohio, through Ohio, and then probably to Mammoth Caves, of course. But there's a lot of caves just in the region, especially in Whip's Ledges. They call it Panther Cave, and there's Wildcat Cave. So there's a lot named after these strange creatures. Most have not been fully explored. A lot have been cemented off. A lot are uncharted, of course. But yeah, I just there's not much on it, because I think these creatures are there and they don't want to tap into it. But yeah, I think it goes all the way to Indianapolis caves, like the Squire Boone caves, all the way to Mammoth Caves. I think all caves, not all caves, but all major cave systems connect. And then there's other things down there too, because there's untapped energy and frequencies and vortexes that haven't really been explored by men. But maybe these animals or beings can tap into it. I've heard so many stories of people going into caves in one side of the country and then popping out in the other, or 9 months later. So we're talking, abnormal stuff that is beyond metaphysical, down in these underwater and underground dwellings. I'm believing like Middle Earth, Knights of Templar, portals. Things get crazy once you get underground.
I mean, after you saw what you saw, the real creepy part for me, I mean, the whole thing was creepy, but, saying that you were looking at it and you realized immediately that it just looked like it had been in the water for an awful long time, which that's a very unique observation, and one that, you saw what you saw. And if somebody tries to change your mind about the fact that it was a person, you can easily go, it certainly was not if that was a human being, they would probably be in dire need of a doctor.
100%. They would not be alive, and we would have somehow been able to track them or spotted them, the past 12 years we were out there playing in those woods. I think this creature was either passing through or a master of disguise. Like, it is the king of the region, and somehow I just caught the butt end of it and was really lucky. But then you could also go into, maybe I manifested that and it allowed me to see it because it knew that I was at least open enough to maybe handle it, but there's so much to it. I don't think the creature was as intelligent as a Sasquatch. I think the Sasquatch are able to manipulate the grid. Like, they can control the birds, the bugs, your body. I think this thing was just existing just like us.
Well, and you bring up where I wanted to go next, as far as being open to things and trying to allow yourself to be open to things. You brought up earlier psychedelics and meditation, and I'm assuming that a big reason of your doing that, or maybe 100% of your reason for doing that, is to try to be more open to this. They talk about how our third eye, our pineal gland, will get all calcified, and then we just, we're kind of in a lot of ways dead to things. Now, have you tried things like, have you ever done DMT in the hopes of meeting some of these other entities that are supposed to be able to come to you because you become essentially this receiver?
Yes, I've been lucky enough to use DMT twice, in that type of method, because of course, every night when we dream, our pineal gland, releases a little bit of spurts of DMT, and that allows us to dream. But yes, I've used the method of, the flame twice, and the flame actually burns the crystals, so you have to do it a certain way, and it definitely looks a little suspicious, and you need a guide, because once you inhale it, you go into another world of sacred geometry and divine fractals and these beings that it's not even words, it's just feeling, and it's something you really can't explain either. You just have more appreciation for what's out there, and you realize your soul has been on such a long journey, and this earth and this life is really just a speck, because there are so many lives and lives already lived out there that are within us, and we're all connected, and it's all just electricity. And then it really taps into protons, electrons, and neutrons. And the beautiful thing with that is, most of the time we're particle, we are solid, but in those true moments of being, we could become waveform. And I think, the FRAY and some of the Bigfoot and some of these other deities can probably tap into that waveform a little easier. And then the Montana vortex will show you that you can physically walk in a place, and then you will be a little shorter in certain areas. Your body will shrink. So your body is malleable. You are able to change. And I think people really just need to absorb that. And it's such a crazy thing that's all you can do, is just try to take it like a sponge and try to reflect it to the world. And every day I'm just on a new journey. And part of it is like appreciation, of course. And then half of it also is, I know they're covering stuff up. So I'm trying to uncover stuff, because I think the ancient ancestors, the mound builders, the sun worshippers, the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, the Incans, even some of the Mormon tribe that went to Middle Earth, in the sacred journey, I think all those people and groups were onto something, and it taps into Sasquatch and paranormal and even Nessie, and every video game and every movie and everything we've ever watched has some kind of roots to that source. So it's a journey for Bigfoot, but if Bigfoot's real, then what else is? And I think Bigfoot is the bridge to our creator. And if we really want answers about our DNA and disease and the spirits and the earth, then that's the closest answer we can get. So I look at this as like a spiritual and religious duty, of course. And then my spiritual realm goes on another level to my aunt, that she lived in Ireland and had an encounter with a banshee. And especially 80 years ago, this was not accepted at all. So she was scorned for her whole life. And I feel like it's part of me to just live on in her legacy and just spread the word and spread the knowledge of the strange and the paranormal, and just want to let people know that it is out there and you're not crazy. And I think it's crazy that some people deny stuff that is mountains high. And then there's good people out there that have to go to therapy and that change their life and have to sell their homes because they go through something really strange and abnormal. And people are still out there, thinking the world is just as normal as it seems. Come on, guys. We have to be there for one another. And I'm big on the community pushes everything forward. Academia and university, it's very awesome, and it's official, but they also are getting their strings pulled by many things. The community, we just owe it to the truth, the creator. So I feel like walking that path, and I love leading that charge, or at least being part of the first boat going in.
I'm always fascinated by folks that have been able to, first of all, locate pure DMT, because I heard that it's quite the, not nefarious process, but you have to be very careful, right, as far as where you get your DMT from.
Yes, because it could end you up naked in your shower, almost overdosing on something else, because that's happened to a couple of my friends. That they pretty much go through the worst trip because it's tainted with something, because DMT is pure. So it has to come out of a pretty high level lab. And I always found that fascinating too. It's like, wow, how do you get your hands on this stuff, and how many people is it away from the direct source? But yeah, I got it through Kent State University. So go Flashes. And the guy who I actually got it from, he claims that deep in meditation, he can go into wolf form. And he has found wolf hair after transforming during meditation. So we've had some pretty far out conversations.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, okay, so I have a question for you about, the state that you go into when you're on the DMT. Now, it essentially is a natural state. It's you are forcing that state, but it's not an unnatural state to be in. You're just more pure, I guess. Your brain is just a little bit more clear and pure, or a lot more clear and pure. But do you think that most people, if we were to evolve further to have the DMT naturally come out either on command or more at a time, whatever it might be, without having to, get it from Kent State University, do you think that the world would essentially, not to sound all light and love, but do you think that the world would be a better place? Would we be better as a species, or can most people even handle that kind of thing?
Great question. Great stuff. Yes, I think the world would be a better place, of course, but it would take so much to get there because most people are not ready for it. And we've been conditioned so hard with our jobs and education and just the system to go one way. So we would really have to be able to drop everything, and all the progress we think we've made, we'd have to start fresh. And for people like me who lived out of my car, that's easy, So the 3% and then the other 25% that might be ready. So yeah, one third of the people might be able to turn it into a positive thing pretty quick and let it just happen to them, and they'll become closer with Earth. But I really think, most people, 2/3 people would kind of crumble and would be lost. But if we were able to kind of reset society, and if everybody was able to, get it like we can get soda pop at the store, just in little bits, then yes, I do think there'd be a lot more love, a lot more appreciation, better music, better movies. They'd have VR everywhere. It would be an amazing world. But the thing is, this world is amazing already, and it's it's in our brains. DMT is spurted out when we dream, but the exact second we die, it floods the system. And after doing just a little speck of it and going to a world way beyond, I am so confident in the next chapter. And not the afterlife or none of that. I think it's all one. It's just the fuel, and it's the special juice we need. It's a living dream when you're on it. So imagine when it's an internal flood. It's going to take us to the next chapter. But that's when it gets into a wild conundrum. It's like, whoa, are we in that dream right now? That's the funny question that all the films always ask. But yes, DMT is like living and dying at the same time, and you really don't get to do that many places. And if you have someone close and can watch after you, it's a beautiful experience. And I just left with so much more appreciation, a little less hate in my heart. I went a little slower with everything I need to do. I was a perfectionist, and I still am at some points, but I'm just remembering just to work on myself all the time. And then I also, experiment with Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds, which are actually legal for people to obtain, but it's illegal once you start making the drinks and concoctions. But a lot of the Native Americans and ancient Middle East, the Arab people, they used to use these seeds and contact the other side. And I've had a body buzz in some of the times, and then other times I felt like I've solved missing person cases. There was this UFC fighter named Evan Tanner. He actually went missing in the desert, and he was found long after, but he was a great outdoorsman, and they said he died of dehydration and stuff. Of course, just the weather. But in my dream, it could have been someone just like him. There's thousands of people that happens to. They get turned around in the desert, but I felt like I was there with them, and I understood it more. But of course, me with the paranormal and the cryptids, I felt like there was other things that kind of caused him to perish and run away from his safe place. But it was, of course, just real spotty. But I highly recommend Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds, and then of course some shroomies and Lucy Leaf if you can handle it. But always be mature, everybody, and keep a positive outlook, and never do it at parties. Never do it when you have super responsibilities, and make sure you talk to your family. Not about the usage before, but make sure you tell them you love them, and just make sure you're in a great mind state, because your darkest demons, your biggest insecurities and vulnerabilities will come to surface. But you realize that you're bigger than them, and there's nothing better than the soul. It's something that can't be calculated. In this world full of numbers and perfect math, we have our soul. We are the anomaly, and I think we've existed since the beginning of time. Coincidence is the only thing to never exist. Mermaids, three-headed monsters, immortality, vampires, werewolves, it all has some kind of root to reality, except for coincidence, because everything has some kind of map to it. But we're the anomaly. So that's the big question about fate and everything. Is it all mapped out? Do we have the control? I think we do, because we have that light in our heart.
Now, Connor, as far as this MMA fighter, do you feel like you were essentially either astral projecting to see this, or that you remote viewing in a way? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I guess it would be a little bit of both. I was laying there with my eyes closed, so I was in my house, and I was visualizing with him. So my body was his body, and I was living it, but I was kind of out of control, just riding along. But man, I hate to throw Sasquatch out there, but I think there was some kind of creature stalking him, and nothing's ever been reported about that. And that's why I never can confirm if it was Evan himself, because he was one of my favorite fighters, and that was one of the first missing person stories that I followed, because that was about 10 or 12 years ago. But man, it could have been anybody. Like I said, it could have been any 20 white male that has went missing in the last 20 years. But I think something was after him, and that's how I woke up in the next morning, like worried about that.
That wouldn't be a fun way to go, is to be stalked by something. That's on the no list for me.
Yeah, and I just like watch my words with it, just with his family and stuff. But his name is
Right.
Evan Tanner. He went missing in the desert. A lot of people said that he kind of just pushed it too far, and that was his personality. And of course, that's what they say about all fighters. But if there was some kind of strange thing, then maybe I caught a window of it during my LSA trip.
Now, you say you were on the road for 4 years. Was that, was the 4 years, kind of to the day a plan, or you kind of went until you had to go back to work kind of a thing? What was the situation there with your road trip?
Yeah, my house sold in Ohio, and my mom was getting remarried to a man in Indiana. So she was living in Indiana. My dad remarried, and then my sister was in rehab and jail. And my house sold, and I was living at my buddy's doing tile and grout. So I really just needed something new. And I have a Ford Contour. I took the passenger seat out of the car and built a bed. And then I did a bunch of research about living on the road and van life and just where to sleep. And then I made a profile on couch surfing, that it's an app like Facebook for travelers. And the first person I ended up like linking up with on there I thought he was a surfer dude, but he was actually a punk rocker. And he wrote this punk rock musical that got accepted into Orlando Fringe Festival. And me, I'm really into film and writing and playing guitar. So it was like right up my alley, and I really needed a place to stay. So I ended up staying on their couch for 10 months. I graduated to the room, but they hired me as the stage manager, and we played all around Florida. And then for the summer, we went on the road to California and back. And then after that, been just bouncing around. But now I live in the Panhandle. I have a trailer for the short term, which is awesome because my collarbones been killing me. And I really hadn't seen anybody I knew for a few years. And my mom moved to the Panhandle in the meantime and has a farm. So that's how this area got picked. So I live right down the street from my mom. But I spend a lot of my time road tripping. I just got back from Tennessee and the Everglades. So pretty much every other week, I'm, going on the road with something planned. I have a lot of friends in Alabama and Georgia that have a lot of property that I love to check out. I'm going to Flat Rock, Alabama. Forget the actual town, but my buddy Flat Rock Booger lives there, and he has these Sasquatch pounding on his side of his house, howling. He has a bunch of security camera footage of them and great recordings, and going there for like 3 or 4 days to camp out. And they have caves on their property, and that's my big thing. I'm the cave guy. I'm the caveman. Over here in the Panhandle, a lot of people don't know we have caves, and I go into all the uncharted ones. And a couple of my friends have went into sketchier ones than me, and I'm really working up the courage. And I hate to say it, but I don't feel comfortable with those certain people down in that situation. I feel like if anything would go wrong, it wouldn't be the best situation. I don't want to get stuck with the wrong people. Pretty much all I want to say. I want to be safe down there.
That's very smart of you. Yeah.
Yes, I've heard too many horror stories, and he's like the one dude. He really pushes the envelope, and I don't know. He just doesn't have much regard for himself, and I want to live to tell the next story. So it's just like I don't know. If I can get someone a little bit more knowledgeable and a little safer than him, I'm down. I'm always, hey, if you jump off that bridge and you survive into the water, I'm good. Just show me where to jump. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I just always check the depth before you dive. My dad taught me well.
Yeah, with you being the cave guy and trying to work up to go maybe into more dangerous areas, because spelunking and going into these caves is extremely dangerous. Maybe you shouldn't read The Descent. Maybe you should ignore my recommendation. It's like the Descent movie, but on steroids, like the strongest steroids you can ever find. So it's quite terrifying. But anyhow, you'll love it. You'll love it. So earlier, Connor, you brought up the missing 411. Will you regale us with some of your thoughts on that? And, you kind of mentioned staying safe, and you gotta, maybe stay on the radar, tell people where you're going, all of that. But what do you think's going on there? Or do you think it's a whole bunch of different things, or a few different things?
Yes. Again, great questions. I definitely think it is many different things. There is Sasquatch, the wild men, the feral people, because Dennis Martin, he was taken by something hairy in the woods, and then the Green Berets came in and hunted down a bunch of these feral people. So it definitely the Sasquatch have something to do with it. And Owlman, he's a famous researcher. He was on Sean G, Chasing the Truth, and How to Hunt with some crazy information. And he like talks to these Sasquatches. He says they call themselves the people. They call the creator the great creator. They never forget the great. They call us the little, naked, dirty, hairy people, something like that. And he also has dropped a lot of knowledge on the 411. He says when you find the folded clothes in the place that, in the middle of the river and that one rock, that is them kind of picking up the pieces. And I know that's kind of broad and general, but I do believe it in some of the cases when maybe something happens like Dogman or something beyond Sasquatch, and then Sasquatch is kind of the diffuser, the balancer, try to give us some kind of closure. But as we know, it just leads to more answers. How the heck are clothes perfectly folded and not wet or not tarnished, and shoes that are 6 years old look like they're brand new in the forest? So there's definitely some strange things. And then I go to maybe alien abductions or extraterrestrials. And when I say aliens and extraterrestrials, I'm not talking about 400 light years away. I'm talking about extraterra. Terra means land, other continents. Admiral Byrd, he found continents beyond the wall filled with mammoths and weird raced people. So I believe that these extraterrestrials, that they just come over from probably 400 miles away. They're not too much farther than our Irish brothers and sisters. And I know they're farther than 400 miles away, but I think the cloak, I live in Florida, so just each farthest point over to the ocean, I think they reside. And then under the Great Lakes, there have been reported of bases. And then, of course, the Grand Canyon has people that live underneath it, a whole race of forgotten people. So there's a lot of these strange occurrences that all just line up. And again, it just brings me back to Sasquatch, self, mound builders, and just everything that surrounds us. They think that we are so advanced and beyond our ancestors that, man, look at the pyramids. They are giant instruments. If you go next to some of the walls and you go, oh, it echoes. So imagine thousands of people. I believe the pyramids were made with their minds, because back in the day you could manipulate the energy. They didn't have all the Wi-Fi, all the crazy poison going through. It used to just be earth, mind, and soul. And the mind is stronger than anything we could ever imagine. It's a conundrum in itself. But man, it all links together, and it gives me a lot of appreciation.
Do you have any theories as to why they are taking these people and what may be happening, while they're gone?
Yes, I think there is definitely being testing. People think it's the adrenochrome because that's, immortality. That's what maybe the vampire serum is, or the Tuck Everlasting Water. And then I think in other occurrences, these people might just be lost because it's all electricity. And then they get lost in these boulder fields and just weird forests. And they're always found in water, and water is a great conductor. So maybe sometimes their energy just goes into waveform and kind of dissipates. But maybe they go into another realm, and I hope it's a peaceful realm. But I've heard many stories online about, floors like you're just in a warehouse basement and you just can't get out forever. And that kind of stuff terrifies me. And I feel horrible for the families and the people that go missing, that if that's even close to the occurrence. I believe that the creator wouldn't allow something that dark to happen without some kind of balance. So there has to be some kind of just end, even if it's kind of unfair. I think there's no infinite or eternity in this darkness.
So you keep mentioning the waveforms, which I think is really interesting. So as far as one of the stranger aspects of the missing 411 cases is oftentimes the people are found even deceased with clothing on backwards, things that are supposed to be underneath or on top, things like that. So do you think that this whole waveform situation, going back and forth from that, may contribute to these strange, clothing situations that are found.
Yes, definitely. Kind of like what was happening in Montauk and the Philadelphia experiment when they tried, moving people through dimensions and time. They came back in like the submarine, like fused into the wall. So maybe these beings that are taking our friends and family, they might have a little bit better math or science to it, but the clothes does end up on the outside. But also it could just be they're trying to, put the clothes on the people, and that's the best the Sasquatch can maybe do. But I think that these people are going missing, and the ones that are found are placed there most of the time. They are not killed there, of course. We've already heard that from the reports, because it's searched 5 or 6 times. So somewhere they're being taken. And I don't know if it's in this realm or maybe just deep in a cave, but they are being taken somewhere. And hopefully it's just painless for these people.
Yeah, I hope so. Especially, it's always heartbreaking to hear about the kids and to watch the missing 411 docs and then see the parents, like the guy holding his child's skull. Yeah, it's hard to keep together when you're watching something like that. To me, no matter who or what is doing this, the element of an area searched X amount of times, like you said, and then, somebody happens to walk back by an area that's been searched X amount of times and there's a shoe, or even at one point, I think there was, and it wasn't the man that I was talking about, but in one of the cases, there was a skull cap or most of a skull that was placed, at a location where it had been searched. And to me, that just seems very cruel. And I don't even quite know why, other than just to be big old jerks, that they would even bring something back in order to kind of say, well, you were close. I mean, this is where it happened. And here you go. Here's a little talisman to show you that, you're on the right track, but you were a little bit too late.
Yeah, they just don't understand like our morals and our code, because maybe in their world, the Sasquatch world, if they did find a skull of a loved one, it would give them some kind of clarity. But with our human being feelings and everyday life, our connection, of course, with our family, that's all we got, of course. So to have that ripped from us, it's a mixed thing. It's kind of a slap in the face, like you're saying, and then maybe it does provide some kind of clarity, but it is cruel, 100%. Some of the bodies, they have really high levels of GHB levels, which is the date rape drug, like roofie. And I don't think they're being roofied or anything, but that's naturally produced in our body as well. So either these beings know how to bring this out of a person, and then that paralyzes them and then kind of leaves them in a weird state. I just, again, hope it's painless and not cruel. I hope they're doing it for some certain reason. But I just think that's crazy, and they don't do the testing on most of the bodies, and there's just something to it, and that just shows that people aren't just going missing. Cullen Finnerty, I also want to raise awareness about. He was an ex-NFL player that they blamed his on brain injury and pneumonia, they said, but he was being chased after by two dark creatures, and he said dark men, but he was 6'4", so something bigger than him would have to be something crazy. But he ended up throwing up in his mouth, I guess, and dying. But I think something was linked to the Sasquatch with that. And then Henry McCabe, I'm not sure if that's an official missing 401 story, but he was found like 11 miles from the last spot he was seen. He was found in the water, and there's a weird voicemail with him that he was calling while he was drunk. And he was drunk, so he's not walking 11 miles through the woods. But there's weird samurai chatter. He sounds like he's getting hit in the voicemail, and it's really spooky. And then my other one that I think is definitely Sasquatch is the Jared Adadero one. That might be, I don't know if that's the one that Dad was holding the skull, but it's one of the main ones that David focused on. But Jared was like 2 or 3 years old, and before he went missing, he went up to some fishermen and he asked if there were bear in the area. And it's like, why would a kid come up with a question like that? And then you've heard all the stories about the little kids going missing, and then say a bear took care of them through the night and kept them warm. And of course, I think that has many links to the wild, man, to the ancient ones.
Yeah, that's an interesting point with the GHB, naturally occurring, just like the DMT. And one of the movies that I wanted, because I know you're into comics and movies, and I always like to bring up movies. I'm sure people roll their eyes a lot at me, but one of the movies, and I've said this before, is the Banshee chapter. I don't know if you've watched that, but it's all about DUMS, Deep Underground Military Base. It's got that in there. It has got DMT in there, and secret
cover.
programs.
It's like a robot looking like female girl. I don't know if I've seen it, but it caught my eyes. I didn't know it had all that in it. That's wild.
It's all about DMT and secret government experiments that went awry, as they normally do when you're messing with stuff like that. I suppose another one you'd probably like, but talking about the GHB in relation to the missing 411. You brought up a really cool point that I've never really thought about, and that's if some of these are Sasquatch related and someone is that terrified where talking mortally terrified, and at the same time seeing something that you didn't even think existed. I can only imagine, and you think you're going to die. Unless there was some sort of really dark government experiment, and maybe they have done this, it wouldn't surprise me if they had. I do wonder then, with you saying that, how much GHB or any of these other things that really come out in minuscule amounts naturally would then be just completely dumped into your system. And like I said, unless there was some really horrific government experiment, there would be no way to test that. But interesting point, Connor. I've never really thought about that.
Thank you. Yes, I've thought a little bit too much about it. A lot of the
right.
current, Hollywood world has led me to a lot of that stuff. So yes, it's weird stuff, and I just encourage everybody to do your research for the pineal gland, because if you can really grasp it and bring positivity and try to manifest your thoughts, we are mostly water, guys. And there's cool experiments that if you talk to a glass of water and say, "I love you," it will flourish. And if you talk to a glass of water and you say, I hate you, it will get all moldy and gross. And we are water, and the world is water. So we have to just walk every step with that mindset of just trying to manifest and trying to create a positive route to our existence. And of course, the gatekeepers and the shadow watchers, they make it hard for us. Of course, every advertisement and every gamma ray from our router is hitting our soul negatively. So we just have to remember we're bigger than it, and a little bit of light, a little candle can light up a pretty dark cave. And I've tested that firsthand when my flashlight goes out. So yes.
Yeah, you in that cave, and I worry about that. I don't know. I'm kind of a big sissy when it comes to stuff like that. And I've been in my first official cave for filming for Dark Sky, and there was those damn cave crickets that look like spiders, and then there were actual spiders in there. And I'm very anti-spider. I won't just smash them for no reason, but I'm not a fan of them. So I don't know about going down in those caves, and the deeper you go, the weirder all of the life will get, which is fascinating because they live in complete, utter darkness. But boy, there is just something super creepy about caves.
100%. And it's really serene too. Like when they turn off the lights and you get to experience pure darkness, like that does something to your body, to your cells. That it actually reacts, just like moonlight is incredibly healthy for the body. People don't even know moonlight exists, of course. But when you're down there in a cave, you can feel it in your chest that something's different. And then when you're in a cave with monster legends, and then also just Native American history and the chance of just some of that coming together and combining, it's really just a blessing to be there. And those are just places that I'm just trying to highlight and find more of, and kind of inspire people to find those places of their own towns and regions. Just because, man, if there was an army of little crazy people like me, uploading to TikTok and YouTube of their crazy adventures, I think we'd be a little closer to a little bit of the bridge and the answers. But again, it's the conundrum of life. You get a little bit closer, but you get so much farther away. But hey, I love the journey. Every single day, it's talking to people and trying to find out just a little bit more about this blue sky and green grass.
Well, winding down here, but I do have a couple more questions for you. So, have you ever had an experience that really, truly scared you?
The one with the Wolfman definitely bothered me a little bit, but I was able to bounce back and go in the woods after. Recently, probably like 4 months ago, we were visiting Torreya State Park, which is famous because Finding Bigfoot filmed there, the famous thermal footage of like an 8 foot, 9 foot tall creature. And then Donnie Miller had a face-to-face encounter out there too. But I went when it was late, and it's in the Eastern time zone, and I'm in the Central, so we lost an hour going in. That really didn't mess with, the sky or anything, but the park was getting a little closed and less people were out there, but it was about to rain and it was just drizzling, getting dark. And we went off this one path right by the creeks, which Matt Moneymaker says is a huge hot spot for Sasquatches. And they just plowed through there because Hurricane Michael obliterated the whole region, basically. So they kind of reshaped the paths, and a lot of the pushed, broken trees are on this like cliffside, and below the trees are this huge creek. And I heard like a giant creature wading through the creek, and for some reason, my mind and my body kind of just like started shaking. And Ronnie, the guy I was with, ex-military guy, he's a self-proclaimed ninja. He was trying to move down the cliffside, like climbing on the wood down towards it. And I was just getting such waves of like, no, not directly from the creature or anything. I think he knew we were up there, but he didn't care, or it didn't care at all. But I was just so terrified. And I actually videotaped it through GoPro, and my loudmouth goes silent for like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then about 15 minutes after, I recorded myself talking about it, and I was just like kind of still shaking. I don't know if that just had like the alpha presence, or maybe it just caught me at a weird time. And I definitely spook myself a lot with the David Paulides Missing 401 all the time, because I'm like, oh man, it could happen at any time. And I've heard so many stories that sometimes it's not even a physical thing. Like sometimes a thought will go in your mind and you'll just run and never be seen again. So I have so many walls up in ways. I try to be open, but I'm also like guarding myself on the spiritual realm from being demonically taking over. And a lot of people always joke with me. They're like, oh, are you scared about it coming home? I'm like, well, I have cats, and they were worshipped by the Egyptians for a reason, and their purrs and their pineal gland, they have a type of quartz in their pineal gland that when it vibrates, it's so healing. And again, I think there's something inside our pineal gland that when we're in the right mood, the right wave, our right being, true magic is possible. But yes, in Torreya, I was terrified for some reason. It wasn't even the closest encounter I've had. And then a couple weeks after that, I had a boulder be thrown behind me, and that was a definite, for sure, warning to get off that path. And I wasn't scared at all. I was hanging out. So it's all in the exact moment. And then recently, I was in Tennessee for the Tennessee Squatch Out with Old Bear Den, Manimal Research, and the Squatching Cowboy. And we had 3 or 4 days of mild activity. A couple people had twigs and acorns and rocks being thrown on their tent, whispers being heard, cracks being heard. But the last day we had presentations at Old Bear's Den. He has a YouTube channel. He's an older trucker. He's also a minister. Well, he's also a Sasquatch hunter. He claims, he has some pretty good stories and good information. He claims that he has killed 3 Sasquatch. And that Janice Carter from 50 Years with Bigfoot, the Carter farm, the ones who raised a Bigfoot and have telepathy connection, Janice somehow sensed that Bear has killed a Bigfoot and told Manimal Research. So multiple things have occurred. It's not just one guy saying this. Well, if these Sasquatch have told Janice that Old Bear's Den has killed Sasquatch, then I think these ones in the mountains surrounding us probably know that too. And my friend Tristan and I were the 2 young bucks of the whole camp out. And we were going for a midnight hike right in the mountains, right towards some of the sightings. And there was a huge storm coming, and we really didn't know that at the time. But again, we got some spider sense, and I had some bad attitude out there. I was like, man, I ain't even got time for that. I got to get back. Like, I was just like freaked out using like cowardly expressions because I was shook. But we only made it like a quarter mile and hit a spot that we were at probably 20 times that weekend. And we're like, man, I don't think we should go much farther. And Tristan's like, yeah, my spidey senses are going off. And he ended up walking back forward with a flashlight, and then I ended up backing out of there. And I pretty much accepted that I was going to give myself up if something was going to really charge us. But it was just pretty wild, that whole process, hearing Old Bear talk about killing some Sasquatch, and then hearing that some Sasquatch know that, and then of course us being visualized as like the sacrifice. And we also believe, though, if we didn't hustle back and we did get caught in that storm, then who knows what would have happened. And that we probably would still be missing today, and hopefully some people would be at least trying to find us. But man, those Tennessee mountains have Spearfinger, feral people, Sasquatch, Dogman. Of course, even the Thunderbirds could pick someone up and fly off with them. But yes, I've been scared a handful of times, and I've also had knocks on my side of my house back in the day when I lived in Cleveland, and my house been broken into a few times. So I've had some real life horrors go on, and then of course paranormal ones. And then one time in Clearwater, this couple tried kidnapping my friend and I by getting us really drunk and forcing us into a car, and we ended up kind of muscling out of it. And
oh my gosh,
and they were it was crazy. It was really crazy. And the girl was really pretty, but she had one eye that was like a wandering eye. And man, we called her the Cyclops, which isn't nice, but she was trying to either take our organs or steal our stuff.
Oh
so
my gosh,
I don't really care about being nice to her.
Oh my goodness. How did you get out of there? So you actually were shoved into the car and they started to drive off?
Yes, we were in a truck. We kind of willingly went in the car first, but then we pulled off. Okay, so we were driving around smoking, and the guy was driving, and the girl was in the passenger seat, and we already had one burning, but then she was like breaking down some. And Clearwater is a big circle, and he was like taking the turn really fast, and I was behind the driver's seat, so I can see her diagonally and perfectly. She was being dramatic, and she like spilt all the ganja all over the floor. He starts screaming at her, pulls off to the side at some alley, and there was actually two guys in there waiting for us. So they outnumbered us by 4 people. And my buddy, his name's Billy. I might as well say his name. He's got a whole military family, but he's not military. He was screaming, "We're military. People gonna know when we're missing. We're missing." So he was claiming that we were on there from base, and that people would know if we went gone. And he ended up getting me. They had a child's lock or something in the back seat, and he's screaming, open it, in her face. And finally, and I know I'm all over the place explaining this, but the guy like started like a fake argument with the other 2 people waiting. So they made it seem like it was all natural.
Right.
But my buddy Billy seemed like picked up on it. I was like totally drunk, and I'm a couple years younger than Billy. So I feel like I would have got taken and done for it. I definitely learned a lot that night. But Billy was just screaming in the girl's face, and then finally he was going to punch her in the face, basically. And then that guy ended up getting really aggressive with him. But we forced our way out of my door, which, she ended up unlocking. But then I just remember like really being nervous that they were going to shoot us in our back. But then we just ran off. And it was really crazy. It was definitely a lot of our own accord, and we were just being stupid and drunk and wanting to, smoke. But it really taught me the horrors of, Tampa Bay and the Clearwater area, because trafficking and, kidnapping is huge over there. And I don't even know what the possibilities were going to happen.
Oh
and
my gosh.
It's just so funny even telling that story, because that was like, I don't know, probably like 8 years ago, right when I was really scoping out moving to Florida, about 3 or 4 years before. And so much has happened, so much weird paranormal stuff. So I kind of, look back at that, I'm like, wow, that was when my life was kind of calm. And that's the kind of trouble I was getting into. So I'm much wiser with that kind of crap now. But I definitely get into the paranormal stuff just as much. But we used to get really crazy too, like doing mushrooms in the woods and camping out. Now I'm a little bit more, again, I'm a little baby with the missing 401 stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh. But there's just so much to it. And Ben McDaniel, he was a missing 401 case, and he went missing probably like 45 minutes from here, from my house. And so that case is pretty close to my heart. He's down in a cave. He was a cave diver, and Ed Sorensen, who actually lives here in town, he's a cave instructor, and he recovers bodies. He's a pretty big guy, but Ben McDaniel's even bigger than Ed. So anywhere Ed could get, Ben couldn't get. He searched the whole cave. They even did the test on the water to see if there was dead bodies in anywhere in the area. Nothing ever came back. They found like $800 in his car. They searched all the swamp around it. Never found him. So even just thinking about that, I'm like, it could happen to anybody. And then, of course, just little Dennis up in Tennessee, hearing that story, and just all the time, the people that pile up, and then, listening to Gemma and Steve's stories when it gets with the FRAY, and they actually have some weird paranormal, because of course Poetic likes to keep it fair and just down the straight and narrow the path. But I love what Gemma and Steve are doing. And I actually just got Gemma's book today in the mail. So it's kind of funny that it links up with today's interview, of course.
Yeah, I gotta say, as much as I whine about spiders and caves and dark places, I think I would take that over the Cyclops and her friends and their little baiting you guys into the car to make you feel comfortable. There's a pretty girl there. Well, mostly a pretty girl.
She was flirting with us.
Yeah, she was the bait.
He would go to the bathroom and stuff. Yep, that's
terrible.
I learned a lot, and that's you can't fall for that kind of stuff. And
oh my God.
I feel bad, and that's where, like, let's drop some movies. Hostel, I never found. I watched that movie with my dad in theaters, and getting through the first half was awkward enough. But I watched that movie thinking that will never happen to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And there I am, locked in a car with the child lock on. I didn't notice it till halfway, and man, I really thank Billy, and we get a lot of jokes about that. But the two guys who were with us were military, and they were way tougher than us. And they were back at the room, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the next day we went to the gas station, said the bar we went to, and the guy's like, dude, that's like the worst place in town. So it was a bad thing from the start. And I didn't even want to be there. I was just joining Billy because he wanted to drink, and I'm not, I like a good time, but I was happy just to be in Florida at that point. I didn't need to go to the bar.
Yeah. Damn you, Billy. I mean, he got you out of it. That was smart to say what he did about, hey, we're military. They know where we are. They're going to miss us immediately. Thank God for that. But I agree. Let's blame Billy for that one. Totally. Yes. No more letting Billy pick the places that you drink. Well, Connor, now I know that you have a whole lot more experiences and encounters. I mean, you have documented that in all 4 of your books. Do you have any more books coming out?
Yes, I have one coming out called I don't have a date or anything, but it's typed and about 90% ready. You're a fellow writer. The first 90%, boom, 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 and then it gets really interesting in the last 10%, perfecting everything and really, putting the final touches and bringing it all together. But yes, it's called Every Camp Has a Crystal Lake, and it's about all the haunted camps and campuses and universities and just weird festivals that I've encountered. Not really places, kind of just the camp life. And of course, the Tennessee camp out's going to be in there, and talking about how Janice Carter, the first time of the Squatch Out, she actually cut it short because she thought these dogman creatures were hunting down the people, and the Sasquatch telepathy communicated with her and let her know that. So things get things get really weird, of course. But yes, every camp has a crystal lake. And then my most recent one was called Panhandle Pirates. And that one is all about the Panhandle journeys, which is the Panhandle of Florida, South Georgia, and South Alabama. And there's just a plethora of beings and cryptids and treasure. That's the thing. As a treasure hunter, I have to battle these krakens and these weird deities sometimes. But Huggin Molly, as mentioned, the Mobile Wolf Woman, a bunch of mounds around here. A lot of people don't know that there's pyramids in America. In the Collamoki Mounds in Georgia, there's a 70-foot tall temple mound. And back then in the day, before it was covered in grass, it looked exactly like a pyramid, like a prism. And it is a sacred spot. And we've had a couple strange occurrences there with ghost creatures, and then one goat man looking creature that was captured in one of our videos. But I definitely try to raise awareness for the Native American mounds, the Chattahoochee mounds, the Lake Jackson mounds, and of course the Letchworth mounds. All those are in the Panhandle of Florida. All of them line up with the summer solstice and the winter equinox, and that is just so magical. But in the Collamoki Mounds, you can go into the museum, and it goes inside one of the burial mounds. And back to that feeling in your chest, like I felt cave feelings in my chest recently, but that inside the burial mound put a feeling in my chest that I had since I was probably like 5 years old, and it's hard to describe, but it takes you back to where you need to be, and it's truly special. But man, I just love raising awareness about just the earth and things that kind of are undiscovered. I love atlasobscura.com and roadsideamerica.com. Whenever I make a trip anywhere, I always look up the spots right on those websites wherever I'm going to go. I'm like, okay, what fun places can I hit and research? And then I dive into, BFRO and ghostofamerica.com, all the normal sites that people use, of course. But while I'm ranting real quick, I want everybody to check out the movie Zillafoot. I'm in it, and it's in Walmart, Best Buy, FYE, and it's on Amazon. It is so bad, it's good. But I'm really proud of my parts. I play a cryptid research officer. I basically play myself, so I just get to rant and rave and warn the military of impending doom. And they don't take it well, and they kind of usher me out of there. But it's a really fun one. And the sequel is going to be directed by the guy that filmed my shots. So I'm actually going to be the main character in the sequel as well. So I'm super pumped. And I have another horror movie coming out October 31st. It's called The Void Cat. And it's kind of like a Splinter Cat and a werewolf combined, and it is scary, and I'm the main character in it, and it's for a film festival, the 31st, and originally there was supposed to be a cat drive, like an adoption, so there was rules that had to be around a cat and stuff, so we had a lot of fun with it, but sadly they canceled the dang adoption because of the current times. I'm like, guys, the cats can't get sick from this. What are we doing, But it's still, we're gonna rep the cat, and I'm super proud of it. The trailer is on YouTube, The Void Cat. But I'm here doing everyday research in the field, but I also love doing the fun stuff too, because like you and I, we're huge cinema heads, and I think that all movies have some kind of root to reality. So if I can bring a little bit of my flavor and juice to the screen, then I'm gonna keep doing it, just because I love the theater. I love performance. I love creativity. I love writing. I just love creation. And anybody that like pushes something of their own, I admire it. And while I'm at it, I loved Dark Sky, and you and Seth did a great job. And it's just an honor to link up. And I told my mom today, because we watched it together, I'm like, I'm doing an interview with that girl from the UFO movie. And now she'll remember you, Shannon LeGros, but before you were just the cool UFO girl. And I think I'm happy being the cool Bigfoot guy once in a while too.
We take what we can get, right, Connor? I mean, it's all good. That's awesome, though. Thank you. And tell your mom thank you so much. Thanks for watching Dark Sky. Well, all I know is, Connor, we already have the next time you come on ITF all mapped out. We're going to cover Panhandle Pirates, and then every camp has a crystal lake. It sounds like that one will be out probably, Hopefully, maybe shortly. I know about that last 10%, actually. Yes, I do. Well, please let everybody know, Connor, where to find you and, of course, your books. Anything that you want to plug right now is your time.
Yes, thank you so much. My books are available on Amazon. Kindle Direct Publishing is an awesome thing, but I definitely appreciate people like Shannon and Into the Fray and Beyond the Fray and other publishers that reach out to these independent paranormal researchers, because there isn't a platform for these people. So some of us do have to just self-publish and hope for the best. And I think that's admirable because it's great for spreading information. I did all mine basically in-house. A new me edited it, months apart. And of course, I sent it to a couple family members and fellow students that are interested in this kind of stuff. But I appreciate you even just giving access to people like Gemma and Kenny the Punk Irishman and Steve Stockton. It's special. It's very special. But mine are on Amazon. Connor Flynn, ConnorFlynn. I'm the Irishman too. You cannot kill the Irishman. My aunt actually dated someone involved in the Danny Green mob situation. She actually had to move away
Oh my
for a
gosh.
few years. So I hope the mob doesn't hunt her down from
Oh
this.
my goodness.
She moved back to Cleveland, so I think they got things under wraps and everything fine. But yes, my first book is Erie Swamps Road Trip to Eden, and that one is like my diary and my baby. Real quick summary: it starts in Lake Erie and takes me down to the Florida swamps, and the final chapter is Road Trip to Eden, Garden of Eden Trail, right here, right by my house, right by the Ocheesee Pond and the Trea State Park. And back in the day, this man made a documentary and wrote a book about it. 27 of the 28 trees in the Bible are in that trail, plus gopher wood, which Noah used to build the ark. It's also known as long leaf terrea or long pine terrea. Only place it grows in the whole wide world is right there. It's a delta that breaks into 4 rivers. It's truly a sacred spot. I think there are many Edens and Atlantises and equals of them around us. We're truly in a sacred world. I think there's thousands of continents, so it's kind of cool journey because it goes from Florida or Ohio to Florida, and then I road trip to Eden, which is a physical journey to a metaphorical place to some. So it's a really cool conundrum and a fun ride. It's a story about me, and it's a story about you. And then my next one is Big Brother Bigfoot. That's my research project. That's from Canada down to Florida, across the United States, the Mogollon Monster, Big Bear Beast, Susquehanna Seal up in New York, of course the Tennessee Titans, the Ohio Grassmans, 2-egg stump jumper, and of course the Ocheesee Pond Wildman, the one that was captured in the 1800s, less than 10 miles away from my trailer park. But it's truly a special journey. And then Monsters and Mysteries Around the Corner was my third one. And that talks about how we don't have to read graphic novels and watch all these scary movies that I'm addicted to. The real horrors will find us. And, sadly, that is true because I've had a lot of strange stuff happen close to home. Just want to honor my kitty cat baby. She was ripped apart last year in my mom's farm last April, and of course it made me reflect on this whole journey. I'm like, man, did I manifest this beast or whatever to take out my cat, and it's some kind of sign, or is it just everything happens for a reason, or did I tell myself it was a coincidence? I'm still battling through it, but I know she's in a better place. I'm a firm believer of heaven. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. I'm huge on the dome and heaven being a physical place, 73 miles up. I always joke around when I go, away from home. I'm like, oh, I'm closer to heaven than I am to my kitty cats. So I love, the ancient text and the scrolls of the unknown. And I'm really just trying to tap into them. And then, of course, Panhandle Pirates was the most recent one. That was a really cool one because I was writing it during the journeys. All the other ones not all the other ones, but a lot of the other ones were reflective. You know, me going back in my past and retelling my story. Where this Panhandle Pirates, I wrote all those fresh the day after or during and a couple days after the current investigation. So it's all fresh data. And it's a cool little journey. One of my future books that I'm really brainstorming right now is with Donnie Miller from Standing Goats Rescue, the man that was abducted by aliens and then has had crazy firsthand encounters. And he's has great interviews on Bigfoot Odyssey and Sasquatch Chronicles. But to be able to sit down with him and be able to tell his story, it will be a true honor. But man, I just have so many projects with the books and the movies, of course, and YouTube, Bigfoot Anon. That is my channel. I drop like ranging from 5-minute long reading chapters of myself to 20-minute to 2-hour long expeditions. We just got back from the Green Swamp with Tim T in Florida. I actually found hair in the barbed wire, and Tim T did a video breaking down the hair under a microscope, and some parts are clear and tan and green. So I'm super excited to put my batch under a microscope as well. But a lot of cool stuff, and I film all the time. I do back camera, so I get a lot of timestamps of like, 12:38, a white Bigfoot looked past the tree. And, you know, sometimes I really don't see anything, but sometimes I do see what they're talking about. So I think we're surrounded by strange things all the time in the forest, and most of them are just looking from a distance. Owlman has said in the past that if Sasquatch harms a human, then they are totally exiled from all their existence. So they put us on an untouchable level. I think they are descendants of Cain in a way, not all of them, but most of them are descendants of Cain. So they are marked, and they are not as close to the Creator as us in that essence. I think they're on the ladder high, but their latch might be a little busted. We are God's babies. They were casted away because Cain was marked one. He's also covered in hair. In the Book of Mormon, I've rounded up all these Mormons around here in the Panhandle. They all love talking to me, and I just get them riled up about how Joseph Smith found Cain in the 1800s, and Cain was as tall as him on a horse. I'm like, guys, that doesn't make me a Mormon, because trust me, they're all trying to get me to join the church. I'm like, that doesn't make me a Mormon, but that makes you guys part of the Bigfoot community. And some of them like that, but some of them, they get riled up.
Yes, but you can rile them up with that. Yes, I imagine so.
Yes, but Joseph Smith, their founder, he was arm in arm with Sasquatch, and same thing with Christianity. Which is, you know, along definitely the same lines. But little baby Jesus, he rode on St. Christopher's shoulders across a freezing, raging river. Many people say St. Christopher was a Titan. Other people say he was a dog man. But I always say baby Jesus is my favorite Sasquatcher.
Hey, if he does it, then we're on the right track, right?
Yes, we are. And every day when we have these kind of conversations and laughter and just the goosebumps, you know, I've been pacing around for the last hour enjoying myself, and it takes me to places that I just couldn't even imagine yesterday, you know, and it's special. It's about the journey. We're searching for the unknown, but we're finding more about ourselves and the electricity around us, and we're all connected. It's a spider web. It's a red yarn tied around our ankles. It's a beautiful thing, and I just look at it as just so much appreciation. But of course, the world breaks me down sometimes and, you know, brings out my insecurities. But I just try to be bigger than it, because David did beat Goliath. We got a chance, guys.
Well, all I know is I've seen your books online, and I've always meant to reach out. So I'm really happy that Dylan of Creepy Unsolved tagged you in that post, and we were able to finally hook up and talk. And I love chatting with you. You have great energy, and I look forward to the next time that you're on ITF. You're welcome on anytime.
Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate it. And again, I have admired from a distance, so it's so special that, of course, it's the Patterson-Gimlin anniversary. And I'm actually planning on posting a TikTok today with 4 really, really, really clear facial Sasquatch pictures. So if one day those are some really famous pictures, you were here the day before, the day of, because I'm gonna release them in a few hours, hopefully, once everybody's home from school. The TikTok algorithm is something to figure out, but I got I'm reaching 20,000 followers, and I've gotten over, I think, like 1.5 million views in the last like couple weeks. So TikTok is blowing up with Sasquatch and paranormal. So I know a lot of people think it's stupid dances and stuff, but guys, there's professional fishermen, hunters, the best of all professions are on there showcasing their stuff. And it's just a beautiful algorithm. So I just suggest everybody go tap in, but if you're tapping like on stupid videos, your feed's going to be stupid. But when you're looking at crazy conspiracies like me all day, I just swipe and see all greatness and inspiration. So guys, check me out. Reach out if you have any inspirational stories or strange abnormities. But, hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I definitely appreciate it. I do a lot of premieres on YouTube as well. So I'm usually there in the chat with people. And then I also co-host a Horror Talk Live podcast with Gypsy Road. He's a great podcaster from Seattle, former military, very wise, very open-minded, but doesn't accept, we don't have all the same beliefs. So it's fun that we're two different people on two different sides of the earth and going at it. But that's every Tuesday and Thursday. I know the times are changing here soon, but people, check me out live. Check out the books if you want to go at a little slower space. We got the movies coming out. It's a great time, man. It's a good time to be alive, and I just want everybody to burst their bubble of comfort, because once I moved out of Ohio, my little safe spot, I tripled down in depth. And I thought I was deep in myself before. And not that you have to move to be deep or anything, but I really found out who I was when I was sleeping under bridges and taking meals from, other desperate people. And you really have to reach out your hand in this world and just hope something warm, reaches back. But in Janice Carter's experience, it was a Bigfoot. But hopefully it's a nice warm hand that could provide a warm meal and a friendly conversation.
And one that doesn't want to take your organs for harvesting purposes to make money or whatever the Cyclops and her friends were going to do to you guys, right?
Yes. And now that I got my feet back under me and, I got a little bit more experience cryptid hunting, I might go back to that bar and hunt down that Cyclops. And trust me, she will be put up on all the weird, mysteriously wax museums on display. They're going to look at her like she's a troublemaker.
Maybe she's not even human. Let's really go down the rabbit hole with this thing. She could have been from one of the dumbs and came up, and you guys were heading down into the dumb. You never know where you were going to go. So that's good on Billy. He was smart thinking, except for picking the bar in the first place. Well, Connor, yes. Thank you so much for coming on with me. And honestly, once your next book comes out, get in touch with me and we will cover that one. Some of the stories, of course, we got to leave for the readers, but some of the stories out of that one and Panhandle Pirates, okay?
Yes, I can't wait so much. And just for a quick little sample, I went to Bowling Green State University. So, of course, Bowling Green's on there. Ohio University, on a lot of articles and charts, they're the most haunted university in America. So I had a lot of strange stuff there. And then Mohican, guys. I had a strange occurrence. This girl, Kaylee, who was a family friend, she saw about 40 to 60 ghosts when she first woke up, like 2 or 3 months before I did my Mohican trip. So I heard so much about all the ghosts, and it was a famous story around town that she woke up and saw these ghosts. And then that same weekend the same week when I was there, my best friend Adam, he was lured out of the cabin sleepwalking and thinks that something was trying to take him. And both Kaylee and Adam wrote their experiences in my book. And I just love to tell my story and tell our story. And guys, if you're going to sneak on the golf courses to fish their ponds for their exotic fish, be ready. And if it's the police, run. But if it's lights and whispers, run even faster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, cops are scary enough, but I think lights and whispers would get anybody running even quicker. You wouldn't even need running shoes. You'd just figure a way. Well, Connor, you have a wonderful day out there in one of my favorite states, Florida, and keep in touch, will you please?
I will. And I have a huge weekend ahead. I have a Bigfoot festival on Sunday in Pace, Florida. I'm super excited. I have a vendor table. And then Friday and Saturday, Stacy Brown, the famous investigator, he's coming to town, and we're going to Bellamy Bridge, and then we're going to the White Witch's Grave. And Elizabeth Budd Graham was a positive witch with an Edgar Allan Poe epitaph on her gravestone. So I'm just looking forward to it, and just have a magical rest of the month. And thank you so much for linking up, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Amen to that, dude. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we will chat soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye, Connor.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. Eliot has the same idea in his poem, The Four Quartets, where he says, when you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. The master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.